Lecture 1, Introduction to Structural Geology. What is structural geology? This cartoon gives us a good idea. Structural geology is related to the apocalyptic restructuring of the Earth's tectonic plates, but tectonic party also works. Structural geology is the study of deformed rocks. To do this, we define the geometries of the rocks in 3 dimensions. We measure or infer the movements and strains experienced by the rocks both during, and particularly since their formation, based on indicators of how the rocks may have looked like before deformation. And we infer the stresses that produced the deformation based on our knowledge of rock properties. These 3 approaches are referred to as geometry, kinematics, and mechanics. Notice that the words strain and stress are highlighted here. Structural geology is the study of strain and stress in rocks. There is a fundamental difference between structural geology and engineering. In structural geology, we deal with the end product of deformation in rock materials. Given this end product, we try to guess the processes by which deformation occurred. This is detective work. In engineering, on the other hand, we are interested in the effect that known or expected forces will have on undeformed, and perhaps simpler materials. This is engineering design work. Geology is an interpretive and historical science. Geologists are storytellers, and structural geologists are not the exception. As we said before, there are 3 levels of study in structural geology. Geometry, which deals with the size and orientation of structures. Kinematics, which describes the movements the particles in the rocks experienced during deformation. And mechanics, which looks at how the forces applied to the rocks have produced the movement of the particles that make up the structure. There are also different types of structural studies. Observation, which is what we do in the field. It involves description of the geometry and orientation of structures, and their relation to other structures. Timing relations, or the order in which the structures formed and the time it took them to form, are very important. The second type of study is experimental. Here, we try to reproduce under controlled laboratory conditions, structures similar to those we see in nature. The aim is to get insight into the processes that produce deformation. The third type of study is theoretical. Here, we apply physical laws, through analytical or numerical methods, to model the structures. The objective is to reproduce the geometry and deformation of geologic structures. The range of scales that we deal with in structural geology is very large, and it goes from the submicroscopic scale to the global scale. There are 13 orders of magnitude from the smallest to the largest scale in this figure. In this class, we will focus on the mesoscopic scale or outcrop scale, the macroscopic scale or geologic map scale, and the regional scale. Scale is very important in any observation we make in structural geology. At the scale of the section above, the black layers look folded, and we can say that the deformation is ductile. However, at the smaller scale of the section below, these layers are faulted, and the deformation is brittle. This is very important in subsurface interpretation. The section above may represent a seismic section, while the section below may represent an outcrop. The small faults in the section below are subseismic structures. To learn more about these concepts, please read Chapter 1 of Fossen's Structural Geology book. And answer these questions.